Welcome to the Quaybog Church podcast. It's great to see everybody. What we do here is we explore how faith in Jesus intersects with real life, right? Because sometimes that can be difficult. So this month, we're looking at the complexities, all month long, we're looking at the complexities of relationships through the lens of faith. And I'm glad you tuned in today because I'm Kyle, by the way, and I'm your host, and we're going to dive into a topic that can make even the strongest of us feel a little uneasy, and that's parenting. So specifically today, we're going to be revealing 7 secrets to parent like a semi-pro, right? None of us is probably ever going to feel like we're doing it like a pro, but I think though we can at least get to that semi-pro level, can't we? I do. I think so. And I am looking forward to today because whether you're a first timer or a seasoned vet, there's something here for everyone. I honestly believe. So let's get started. So the big idea today is to see your kids not just as children, but as little apprentices. That's right. So they're going to be your little mini-me's learning about life right by your side. Now, most people get the idea of an apprentice, like you follow a person around and you basically learn how to do everything that they do in a given field, right? And you want to be successful at whatever it is that they do. Now, in our case, as parents, that would be life. So we're trying to show our kids how to succeed at life. It's like, yikes, right? And so I think, though, there's some basic principles that I personally have picked up over the years from being a parent, but there's also a lot of things that I've seen in other people, and I want to share some of those to help us feel a little bit more confident in what we're doing as parents. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. This is just, I think, a good representation of things that we can do to get us started at that semi-pro journey. So think about it. So how we teach and how we guide and even how we respond to our little apprentices sets the foundation, and this is scary, for their future, right? So let's think about this stuff. So let's break down these 7 transformative secrets to parent like a semi-pro. All right. So secret number 1, be present. Be present. I start here because so many of us are just not present, right? I mean, I see it, and I know you do too. I see it everywhere I go in public. You've got parents on phones, you've got kids on phones. We are distracted, right? And then you talk to kids, I talk to kids, and it's the same at home. Everyone has a screen in front of their face like all the time. But here, I want you to ask yourself this, like, do we really want that as parents? Do I want to look back? Do you want to look back and realize that we watched a bunch of funny videos or shows on YouTube, or that we scrolled hours and hours and hours endlessly on social media, that we know everything happening in town, or that we knew what every sports team we love was doing? Or maybe we worked like crazy all night and all weekend, right? Because we're always available, always distracted. But then at the end of the day, we look back and we realize we did not influence and raise our kids. So what I've learned over the years is not to let valuable time slip away from me because I'm distracted. A good mentor or apprentice relationship, right? It's going to require time, and it's going to require intentionality. And so there's a scripture verse I want to, right? Because where does faith and Jesus and life intersect? I want to share a verse that's pretty popular with parents, right? If you're familiar with scripture at all. It's Proverbs 22:6. It's crazy famous. Here it is. It says, train up a child in the way they should go, so that when they are older, they will not depart from it, from your training, right? And now that takes a lot of focus and intentionality to do something like that. So what do we do? All right. So first, look at how distracted you are. Like, honestly, take a few minutes to think about what's distracting me when I'm with my kids. Maybe it's not a screen at all. Maybe it's like something else. Like maybe you're just lost in your head. Like you're always thinking about something else. Just take a few minutes to think about this and then start to do something about whatever it is that's distracting you, because it's distracting you from your biggest job in life, raising your kids, right? So be present, number 1. Secret number 2, be a guide. Now, our second secret is pretty closely connected to the first one, because as parents, it's our role to be the moral and practical compasses for our kids. So this means teaching them, yes, right from wrong, but it also means helping them navigate life's tricky waters. Because there are so many things our kids need help navigating, right? Think about it. Think about it. There's technology, there's bullying, there's being a good person, being patient and kind and generous, and on and on. And then they get older, and it's finances, and it's like sex stuff, and it's their changing bodies, and it's honesty now with higher stakes. And then it's changing relationships and college and work and driving. You know what I mean? So we need to guide our little apprentices because they don't know how to do life, sometimes at all, depending on their age. And here's the scary question. If we don't guide them, if you don't guide them, who is? Is it YouTube? Is it TikTok? Is that what you want? Right? Because they're going there. And again, it takes a lot of time and intentionality to do this. So don't be distracted. Be a guide. Practically speaking, though, what do? Set a time aside each week, like 10 minutes for life skills, right? Just make a little chart and be like, okay, this week we're going to talk about this. That's a place to start, right? It could be managing money. It could be cooking, right? It could be, it could be anything. Resolving conflicts. Just start creating a list. Start working down it. Because again, Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way they should go. And even when they're older, what? Hopefully they won't depart from it, from your training. All right. Secret number 3, be understanding. Sounds simple, but it's, but tuning into your kids, like in who they are, what they feel, what they think, is so foundational to so much in your relationship. I mean, it means listening more than you speak. And that's hard to do as a parent, right? It means asking questions to dig a little deeper into what they're actually saying. And that's tough. Now, and this whole process here, the understanding thing, can be frustrating, especially when they're really young. And if you've got kids that, are so young they can't talk. Because in those cases, you got to remember how young they are. You got to remind yourself that they can't communicate what's going on. And then you got to try to seek it to help them from that place. But it's understanding your kids. It's knowing your kids that helps with that. Now, doing that, I think, will at least give you a little bit more patience, maybe. Now, however, it can be difficult to slow ourselves down, right? When it comes to understanding, to slow ourselves down emotionally when we're frustrated. But we have to. Why? Well, because we are the guides. We are the mentors. We are always the adults in the room. That part's on us. So we got to model understanding to be able to lead our kids better. Plus, genuinely trying to understand, like, think about it. Genuinely trying to understand your kid's perspective is going to help you better communicate with them at any age. And remember, especially as they get older, and like I've said in other episodes, this is key. We need to listen to understand, not listen to respond. Listen to understand, not listen to respond. And this is going to be hard to do with kids. But when you just listen to respond, though, you're not going to understand them because you're not really listening. You're just waiting for your moment to get your point across. And also this approach, right, to understanding, listening, engaging, all that kind of stuff, it really forces us as parents to engage. And again, that means we've got to be less distracted. It means we've got to lean in. It means we might have to turn off the computer, put down the phone, turn off the TV. Your kids need you to hear them. Here's the scary thing. The less effort you give to this, the less effort they're going to give to being understood. And that's a scary place to be a parent with your kids because they're going to check out. They're going to know you don't want to understand them. So they're not going to try to be understood. We don't want to be there. So what can we do? Simple thing, place to start. Next time your kid talks about their day, instead of, oh, that's nice, stop doing whatever you're doing and lean in. Your kids are talking to you. Lean in, be like, oh, that's cool. Well, what was the best part of that? Oh, what was the worst part of that? Or, man, what do you think about that? Or the old fashioned, how does that make you feel? Right? Lean into those moments. Take advantage of them. All right. Secret number 4, love. Seems kind of obvious, right? With all this. And in a way I did. I felt like I got to include love. Like I got to put that in there somewhere, right? But if you think about it, love is the glue, right? I mean, that's any parent strategy is going to start there. It's all about showing your kids they're valued and loved no matter what. Because here's a test, and you might even do this with your kids. If you ask them today, hey, tell me 3 specific ways that I intentionally love you, like that I show you, right? What would they say? That's interesting, right? So the point is, what are you doing that is so obvious that a small child or a dismissive teen would not miss it? If they're really small, again, you got to come up with the 3 things that you're intentionally doing to show them you love them. And don't be like, well, I feed them, right? Like, you don't like think, like, what do I do outside the things I have to do just to show you I love you? So never take for granted that they know how much you love them. I've learned this over the years for sure. You got to show them. You got to convince them. You got to leave no doubt. Remember, love's a choice. It's not just an emotion. Because think big picture, right? Think faith. Jesus loved the world so much, John 3:16, that he gave his life for us. Jesus Christ left no doubt. Did he? So what do we do? What can we do? Well, make sure to express your love in ways that your child understands. You know, it could be words of affirmation. Maybe it's quality time, whatever, right? Go online, Google it right now and check out the love languages list. Find your kid on that list and do the stuff that matches whatever their profile is. And if you're like, well, I don't know what it is. Again, let's go back and refer to secret number 3, be understanding. You know, and also like other ways spiritually we can care and love our kids. Pray for them, pray with them. That's a crazy loving thing to do, right? Introduce them to Jesus, help them grow in that relationship with him. It's going to help you grow in your relationship with him. And that will be a huge blessing. All right, so here's some scripture from the New Testament author, the Apostle Paul. And this verse right here is the marriage verse. At almost every Christian wedding, there, and even some that aren't Christian, are going to share this verse because it's great information. It comes from 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 7. And it defines love like this. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It's not proud. Think about how we are with our kids, right? Do we boast? Do we try to roast them? Do we try to like be right? It always protects. It always trusts. It always hopes. And it always perseveres. Man, that's parenting, right? That is parenting. All right. Secret number 5, have consequences. Now that might sound odd right after talking about love, but it isn't. Because consequences are actually a very loving thing. Because consequences can be good or bad, but consequences show a very real part of life, like a really important part of life. And we need to guide our little apprentices to understand the reality of consequences. Think about it this way, right? We'll stay with the apprentice model. If you were an electrician and you knew the consequence for touching a live wire was that your apprentice would be electrocuted and then harmed and possibly killed, wouldn't you tell them? Right? Wouldn't that be the right thing to do? Well, of course it would be the right thing to do, right? It's probably one of the first lessons you'd want to teach them. Hey, don't touch that because you're going to die. But at the end of the day, in that relationship, you're not going to worry about hurting their little self-esteem, right? You're not going to worry about crushing their personality. You'd worry more about them getting hurt if they don't know reality. Because actions have reactions, right? And that's crucial for kids to understand. And they need to know early on. I think that's largely what we're seeing, right? Is a lack of understanding of consequences with a lot of our teenage problems and a lot of our young adult problems that we're watching on the news and social media. It's because a lot of them don't understand consequences for their actions. What do we do? Where do we start? Well, start with a list of consequences for things that they do, like negative consequences and good consequences, right? You do this, oh, hey, reward. You do this, not so much. But make sure that their consequences, if they're negative, that match the offense. And that's what the Bible's talking about when it says an eye for an eye or tooth for a tooth. It's just fair and equal negative consequences, right? Don't go overboard all the time and just be crushing them all the time, because that's not going to teach them anything. It's just going to, well, I guess it will. It's going to teach them to hide everything because you always overreact, right? And then make sure that your kids are part of the process. This can be tough, especially the older that they get, right? But if you can identify trouble areas together that seem to always be causing tension, and you can come up together with fair consequences, that's going to create some buy-in, right? And you want to be clear about the consequences of other actions. If a rule's broken, be consistent with the outcome. Don't just be spiteful or vindictive. Don't let your, well, and then don't, on the other side, don't let your love for your kids make you soft either. All right. You want to teach your kids that negative consequences, your negative consequences that are in your home, that they're feeling for their actions, that kind of stuff, and you following through and being consistent is meant to help them learn and grow. So in love, right? Keep that principle in mind. Remind them of this regularly when these negative consequences happen, but also have some good positive consequences too, because that teaches responsibility and accountability. So let me hit you with some more scripture. Here's a helpful verse from the New Testament, from Hebrews chapter 12, comes from verse 11, and it says, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. That's the part our kids and sometimes us want to avoid. However, later on, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Those are good words. All right, secret number 5, be consistent. Consistency in your presence, your understanding, your actions, your rules, and even your love all form a predictable environment where your kids can actually thrive. Because the more that you're all over the place, the more that I'm all over the place as a parent, the more my kids are going to be all over the place. The more your kids are going to be all over the place because they don't know what the rules and the boundaries really are. I mean, think about your job, right? If your job had the same atmosphere as your home, and as far as consistency goes, what would that be like? If your job was inconsistent with the rules, the expectations, or maybe even your pay, how'd that make you perform? Terribly. How would it make you feel? Terrible. Right? And we shouldn't expect anything different from our kids then, should we? That's not fair. So what can we do? Well, try to keep your routines, like, just think simple, like meal times, bedtimes, discipline, right? Whatever, look through your schedule. Again, this is like more just taking 5 minutes to write things down and say, okay, where do I need to create more stability? Because the stability you provide is going to make a world of difference. So what's scripture have to say? Well, James, the half brother of Jesus, so he probably heard a lot of good stuff. In chapter 1, verse 17, he reminds us that one, God is our model and he is consistent. And he says that God does not change like a shifting shadow. That's a pretty good model to emulate, right? I hope my kids can say that about me, like for the most part, right? So secret number 6, be intentional. Now this one, like this secret kind of like ties them all together to this point. And I put it here toward the end because it's just easy to remember. Be intentional. Make a plan on purpose, right? Be present on purpose. Discipline your kids on purpose. Love your kids on purpose. You see what I'm saying? Like, no matter what we do, pointing to Jesus, sitting down to talk, quality time, let's just do it on purpose. Because so much of parenting is really just about being intentional, not just like skipping through, but having a plan. Don't just float through because your little apprentice needs you. All right. And then our last secret, number 7. What could it be? Don't do it alone. Right? Don't do it alone. You need community. So many parents are just doing it alone. Some are literally alone, raising kids by themselves, right? Some are. But whether you're alone, whether you're like a blended family, whatever it is, whether you're 2 parents that, are still together, it's in like the core nucleus family, whatever, you need to find community. You need to lean in for wisdom. You need to lean in for support and encouragement and strength, right? I mean, that's what church community is, right? For example, and the New Testament describes it this way. It says the church is like a body that operates together to stay healthy. The parts of the body that are supposed to do this or supposed to do that and whatever it is. And when everybody's operating like they should, that brings about the best possible outcome. The old saying, right, it takes a village to raise a child. Like, that's really old wisdom. And there's a reason. So what do you do? What do we do? What do I do? Get connected, right? If you don't know where to start, if you're local, reach out to us here at Quabog, right? We'll get you connected to some community, or might even be able to put you in touch with people with that can help with practical needs or stuff like that. But don't do it alone wherever you are, because you don't have to do it alone. All right. So let's quickly recap our 7 secrets to parenting like a semi-pro. 1, be present. Be a guide. Be understanding. Be loving. Have good consequences, even if they're negative. Be consistent. Be intentional. And then lastly, don't do it alone. I really believe that implementing these 7 secrets can really transform your parenting style, right? They can help you cultivate a home that mirrors the fruit of the Spirit. And you can find that in Galatians 5. That's stuff like love and joy and peace and patience and kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and sometimes as a parent, the hardest one, self-control. So there you have it. With a little effort and consistency, we can all parent like semi-pros. Remember, always remind yourself, it's not about being a perfect parent. It's about growing alongside your kids and showing them the way with some grace and some wisdom. So thanks for tuning in today. Don't forget to join us next time. We're going to explore another relationship, and it'll probably be our last one in the relationship series on work and school relationships. But today, though, I hope you found this discussion insightful and helpful and practical. If so, help us out, like it, share it with a parent, maybe your own kids or whoever that it could be helpful with. We just want to help people understand how faith and life can intersect in a way that really blesses them. So until next time, keep striving, keep loving, keep parenting like a semi-pro. Take care. God bless. I'll see you next time.